Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio. Today we are talking about Battlefront 3. But before we go any deeper, guys, just remember that at least one of my videos every week will not be coming to the YouTube channel. It will only be coming to my BitChute, Odyssey, and Rumble channels. So if you're following me on YouTube and you have not, so if you're watching this on YouTube and you are not following me on at least one of the three alternative sites, the links down below, the links will be down in the description below. Anyway, guys, with that out of the way, let's get right into this. This article, happily titled from Screen Rant. Not making Battlefront 3 is EA's worst Star Wars mistake. And yes, for those of you that don't know, this is not the first time we have not gone to Battlefront 3. There was supposed to be a Battlefront 3 back in the late 2000s done by a Free Radical, not Pandemic Studios. Pandemic had already shuttered by this point. But I believe if you played, is it Elite Squadron on the PSP? I think it's Elite Squadron. I could be wrong. It could be either Elite or Renegade Squadron, where you could actually play the remnants of Battlefront 3. Anyway, I'm tangenting off for too long. EA ignoring Star Wars Battlefront 3 for Battlefield could be an error, especially with new shows and movies showing what a Star Wars Battlefront 2 sequel could achieve. To the disappointment of many Star Wars Battlefront 2 fans, it appears as if EA has no plans to develop Star Wars Battlefront 3, which could ultimately prove to be the publisher's most costly mistake with the franchise yet. EA doesn't have the most positive reputation in the gaming industry, thanks to its repeated use of microtransactions and other monetizable features across many of its titles. The company's acquisition of the Star Wars license resulted in some significant failures, most notably 2015 Star Wars Battlefront, which although successful, lacked content at launch, and the early iteration of Battlefront 2. However, DICE successfully overhauled Star Wars Battlefront 2 following player criticisms, and the game became a widely hailed redemption story. Given the game's popularity and the current state of the Star Wars franchise, ignoring Star Wars Battlefront 3 could be EA's greatest mistake with the license. The Star Wars Battlefront franchise has a long history with the gaming medium, with the original LucasArts title having released back in 2004. Its sequel, Star Wars Battlefront II, has widely been heralded as one of the greatest Star Wars games of all time. Its popularity and the lack of a third entry in the series may have been what led to EA rebooting the series in 2015 to be its flagship Star Wars title. Battlefront and its sequel adapted the original game's mechanics, gameplay, and structures with updated graphics and live service systems that dissatisfied some players. Star Wars Battlefront 2 features several game modes for objective-based gameplay, ranging from galactic assaults similar to Rush from DICE's other FPS series Battlefield, to the well-received Capital Supremacy, which was similar to the traditional modes in the original Battlefront games, and came with the added bonus of ship infiltration. Well, let me go back. Let me go back into here. Battlefront and sequel adapted the original. No, that wasn't it. Where was it? They were talking about the first Battlefield adapting some live service systems that dissatisfies it. Yeah, here it is. I was right. Battlefront and sequel adapted the original game mechanics, gameplay, and structures with updated graphics and live service systems that dissatisfied some players. Well, what really dissatisfied a lot of people with 2015's Battlefield, myself included, was there was absolutely no single-player campaign. So the minute that those servers shut down, or Star Wars Battlefront 2015 is no longer a popular game, the game is effectively dead, because it relies on people playing it for years and years and years to come. And especially if you're playing a competitive online shooter, it requires people to play that game, forever and ever and ever, if you don't want to include a single player component. Although great now, EA's Star Wars Battlefront 2 struggled to retain players following its rocky launch. However, following DICE tweaking the game's much maligned progression system, as well as introducing content set during the Star Wars Clone Wars era, player counts soared to the highest they'd been in months, and provided the team-based shooter with a new lease on life. Unfortunately, its success failed to secure a sequel from EA and DICE, which both companies more focused on the Battlefield franchise. While Respawn plans to develop and release 3 new Star Wars games in the coming years, the failure to capitalize on Battlefront 2's resurgence with a new sequel could prove to be EA's most costly mistake with the franchise. After DICE developed Battlefront 2, it began work on Battlefield 2042, which was supposed to be the franchise's triumphant return to the spotlight. Unfortunately, early beta testing and its full launch came with many unwanted surprises from players and longtime franchise fans. Battlefield 2042 suffered major bugs and issues at launch, combined with stiff gameplay and a restrictive class-based system. The problem only worsened when DICE's team took several months to update the scoreboard and fix minor gameplay issues. There is currently a petition for Battlefield 2042 refunds that has obtained 200,000 signatures from players who insist EA and DICE misled buyers and failed to deliver a fully playable product. If EA deems DICE an invaluable asset, it could mismanage the company out of business, similar to Visceral Games' fate back in 2017. Star Wars Battlefront 2 is a popular choice among fans following the removal of loot crate mechanics and paywall barriers. In addition, Battlefront 2's various Star Wars heroes and villains, maps, and eras allowed players to customize their experiences and receive maximum enjoyment during their game time. Now that DICE has conceived a perfected Battlefront formula, a third Battlefront could redeem the studio from the Battlefield debacle it's suffering through now. EA recently announced that a new Battlefield was already in development, despite 2042 still suffering significant glitches and low player counts. Furthermore, Battlefield may struggle to compete with Star Wars when it comes to actual scale. Battlefield has always been a massive franchise both in terms of reach and gameplay, but Star Wars is home to sprawling battles that span land and space, meaning it's poised to make better use of next-gen technology. The Book of Boba Fett recently concluded on Disney+, and though the character's resurgence could lead to more Fett-based games like the canceled Star Wars 1313, it also illustrates the potential of Star Wars Battlefront 3. By the time DICE left Star Wars Battlefront 2 to focus on Battlefield 2042, Lucasfilm had just released the first season of The Mandalorian and the concluding chapter of the sequel trilogy, Star Wars Episode 9. Since then, Star Wars fans have received new seasons of The Clone Wars and The Mandalorian, a new animated spinoff of the former called The Bad Batch, and more stories are yet to come with Kenobi, Andor, more chapters in the story of The Mandalorian, and Taika Waititi's Untitled Star Wars project, to name just a few. Star Wars Battlefront 2's Cut Ahsoka DLC is one example of how it could have made excellent use of these settings, but now it's no longer being supported with new content. It's something that only a full sequel could adapt. A benefit of Disney's new series is the addition of new planets that could appear in Star Wars games. Aside from traditional locations like Tatooine and Coruscant, The Mandalorian also explores a new era between the Galactic Republic and the sequel trilogy, introducing new planets like Navarro, which housed Imperial remnants. Since most Battlefront games launched with a story mode, there are many opportunities for DICE and EA further to develop these new eras, locations, and characters. Star Wars Battlefront 2 began adding new content with Scarif and troops from Rogue One: A Star Wars Story, which is illustrative of just how big the scope was for additional content prior to the abandonment. EA has 3 new Star Wars games in development at Respawn, the studio behind Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, but it's possible they could all be single-player in focus. The first is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order 2, which continues Cal Kestis' journey through the galaxy after surviving Order 66. The first game received incredibly high ratings, with the Star Wars Souls-like game exploring the Galactic Empire and the story of Jedi survivors. Additionally, Respawn is confirmed to be working on a real-time strategy title and a first-person shooter. With the single-player side of games covered, Battlefront 3 could likely have filled the void and delivered a much-needed Star Wars multiplayer game. While Star Wars Battlefront 2 isn't the only multiplayer Star Wars game that players have access to, it's one of the most accessible and popular given the legacy. One of the few other options is BioWare's Star Wars The Old Republic, an MMORPG that launched a decade ago and has hundreds of hours of content. Unfortunately, its data combat systems and graphics can't compete with what Battlefront 3 product could have offered, leaving a prime selling spot open despite EA's reluctance to initiate development. While it's unknown if EA or DICE will change their minds about Star Wars Battlefront 3, it seems a waste to abandon such a lucrative franchise, especially given Battlefront 2's comeback. DICE's failure with Battlefield 2042 bodes poorly for the future of Battlefield, and the decision to work on another entry in the series so soon after its failure could be a worrying prospect, considering the sheer number of Star Wars projects and the likely single-player nature of Respawn's upcoming games. Not developing a sequel to Star Wars Battlefront 2 could be a missed opportunity for EA and DICE, and I swear, guys, that Star Wars Battlefront at this point is just cursed. You know, this, like I said, this is not the first time that we were promised a Battlefront 3 and never got it. You know what EA and DICE are going to have to do with their Battlefront 3 to sell it? They're gonna have to introduce a ground to space combat system that was promised in the original Battlefront 3. Is that you can pick up a ship from the ground, go up and find the space battle, and then come back down to the planet. If EA and DICE were to fully implement that and use that as a point of their marketing, I think they'd get a shit ton more sales. Like I said, because that was promised for Battlefront 3, the original Battlefront 3 that was supposed to come out a decade ago, but was ultimately scrapped and then repurposed for the PSP games. I believe it was Elite Squadron. Going back to the very beginning, the more I think about it, the more I think it was Elite Squadron that repurposed the original the story from Battlefront 3 and just shoehorned it in there. I did like EA's Battlefront 2 after a while. I picked it up when it was like not even a $10 game because everyone and their grandmother was slamming it. So at least I got it for cheaper. Yippee! But do I think them not developing Battlefront 3 is going to be the worst thing that they ever did? I really don't know. Maybe nowadays, yes. You know what I think is also going to be a big mistake? Them not developing a sequel to Star Wars Squadrons. That was a damn good game. You know, why haven't they done that? Because they pretty much killed support for one of Battlefront 2's game modes. I don't remember what it was called. But it was entirely focused on dogfighting, on starship combat, and they all but abandoned it when Star Wars Squadrons was announced to be coming out, and yet we still don't have any confirmation of a Star Wars Squadrons sequel coming out as far as I'm concerned. I could be wrong. But I'm going to go ahead and end it right here, guys, before I ramble on and this gets dragged out way longer than it needs to be. So if you stuck around this long, thanks so much for doing so. And if you've been following me long enough, you know I'm terrible at ending these videos. So I'll just see you guys on next time.